All right, folks, welcome back. That, of course, John Boehner yesterday, about a few days after he mimicked the people in his own party who don't want immigration reform, rejoining us on the panel. And by the way, they'll be back next hour. Rejoining us on the panel, once again, is the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra, and columnist and author C. Edmund Wright. Hello, gentlemen.
Great to be back.
Yes, looking forward to
it. All right, you're both over there. Okay, so we just got off the phone with John Merline, senior writer, editorial board member for Investors Business Daily, talking about the recovery. We touched on this in the last hour, but the recovery, and if after 5 years or whatever of the Reagan recovery and of other recoveries, how this recovery is just pathetically inadequate. And it's almost to me, Obama, say what you will about him, guys, he's not stupid. And I just don't see how he could really believe that after 5 years of failure, doubling down with more regulations, more dictates, and more of the same economic policies is ever going to turn this around. I think he's pretty satisfied with the way things are, Congressman.
I think you're exactly right. Remember, he's not concerned about the economy. He's concerned about moving his agenda forward, which isn't about putting people back to work. And this economy is, especially hammering our young people. Those kids between 25 and 35, absolutely getting hammered. This should be the opportune time for them. But this president, he's concerned about climate change. He's concerned about coal. He's concerned about fracking, natural gas. It's all about his philosophical, his ideological agenda that he's moving. It's about government control of health care. That's what he's concerned about. He wants to implement his ideology and believes that in the long term, America's economy may come back.
Yeah, I mean, Edmund, I don't know what kind of country he is willing to leave us with in 3 years, but it appears that he's willing to roll those dice.
Look, he's who he's always been. He's a doctrinaire liberal. He's an economic socialist. He's a big statist. He believes in government control. And what we have here, and we talked about the GDP shrinkage really last hour, but what we have here, Steve, is a nauseating sclerosis that's just kind of attacked our entire economy. And nothing can get done because you got to go through this bureau and that bureaucrat and this regulation and pay these taxes on it. And that's just frozen everybody. And that's why the economy, people are just frightened with a few niches like energy and Wall Street. People are really frightened, Steve, to invest and to expand.
Yeah, but you got one thing wrong there. What you got wrong is that the only people who have to suffer through bureaucracy, who have to suffer through regulation, is the private sector. We have an administration that no longer has to suffer through Congress, and they're just ruling by edict and executive orders. So, the poor business folks who are trying to create jobs, they're being smothered, and the president's being liberated because I'm free. I can just do what I want to do through executive orders, and you have the Democrats in Congress applauding that transfer of power from Congress over to the executive branch.
Well, to that point, gentlemen, later on we're going to speak to Sidney Powell, long time in the Justice Department and a U.S. attorney who talks about corruption within the Justice Department and the U.S. Attorney's Office and our criminal justice system, while admitting that it's the best system in the world. Just a footnote there. But yesterday I had John Yoo sitting here. And I was privileged to sit next to him, a man who was so instrumental in helping map out the interrogation techniques and deciding that we were attacked as an act of war on 9/11, not as a criminal act. And, they both really take the Justice Department and the president to task for running roughshod over the Constitution. And this is something we've talked about. I mean, this has been going on and on and on. And it boggles my mind that this could be happening in the United States of America, and the Republicans, for the most part, are just, so reluctant to even bring it up. And if they do bring it up, they admit they say there's nothing they could do. Instead of appealing to the voters to understand and empower them to do something in the next election, they just accept it. Edmund?
Well, you know, one thing I wrote about, written about a lot, including a couple of the books, is the Republican establishment, Steve, they never want to have an argument. Now they just want to take a poll, and whatever the people say they believe to probably a liberal pollster, we're just going to accept it, and we're going to bend to what they want. You know, this is not how Ronald Reagan campaigned. It's not how any great leader has campaigned. You know, sometimes part of campaigning is to move the electorate to agree with you, and not just, you know, vice versa. And this is where polling and focus groups are paralyzing our leaders. John Boehner says he comes down a little too harsh sometimes. Never on any Democrats. You know, it's always only on his so-called friends and allies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. All polling does is tell you where the public is at, and tells you how much work you need to do to move the public to embrace the policies and the ideology that you have. But you should never play to the polls in terms of trying to win an election.
Well, Congressman, I could not agree more. And yet, after the 2012 election, or actually before the 2012 election, when Haley Barbour and Karl Rove were explaining their strategy for treating Obama with kid gloves, they said, you know, the public's not with us on this. We must agree with them, and you know, hope we can niche our way to 270 votes.
Yeah, well, the name of your book, WTF. That's a great answer to that. All right, folks, we're coming back. We're coming back with more on the panel. So don't move away. See Edmund Wright and former Congressman Pete Hoekstra, and I want to talk a little bit about immigration real quick, and then I want to move it over to a little bit on the NBA and what's next. What's next for the NBA owners, all of them, on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax Television.